Also, arguably, oil is natural. Need I say more? Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kitty Mary and today we are going to talk about clean, pure, natural aspects of sustainable living and why they suck. I think it's very important that we have a conversation about this because it can be very detrimental to the way we communicate sustainability, but it can also be a big problem if our standards for sustainability are always natural or clean. There are many different aspects to this and I'm going to divide the video into smaller sections covering each of these different aspects. There are many other aspects as well, so let me know if you want a part 2 where we talk about those as well. The first one we're going to talk about is the without chemicals selling point. Now, I see a lot of products being advertised as chemical free, and I see a lot of products, recipes, DIYs, many different things that are consumable in any sort of way within the sustainability movement that is being advertised or branded or promoted as chemical free or free of chemicals. And it's very likely that what is meant by this is free from dangerous chemicals, which is fair, but that's not what's being said. Everything is a chemical. You cannot have something that's chemical free. And I feel like it looks bad on the entire sustainability community if we normalize and cultivate this terminology that something can be chemical free. It makes us look stupid, honestly. And I think I've fallen into this one myself where what I meant was dangerous chemicals, harmful chemicals. The abundance of many otherwise harmless chemicals can in bigger quantities and in bigger concentrations become catastrophic. This is, for instance, what we see with the chemicals used to make viscose or the chemicals in beauty products, because when we put them on our faces, the small concentration we're using in there might not be harmful per se. It can also be harmful though, but once we flush it out into our water systems, it's going to bioaccumulate with a lot of other components and chemical ingredients, and that's going to be a problem. And I know saying that instead is a whole hassle, but generally just staying away from something that's being advertised as chemical free is a good idea. I'm so tired. And when I see actual companies using chemical free as a selling point, I slowly lose my mind. Now, clean is just as misleading as green. We have talked about in many different greenwashing videos how words like eco, green, sustainable don't really carry any meaning in and of themselves. What's important is how something is green and how something is sustainable. And you can tell the good companies from the bad companies by how they explain it, or if they explain it at all, because you don't need any certification or documentation to use words like green or eco or sustainable or natural. And the same really goes for clean. Clean can mean anything, and it can also mean absolutely nothing. It's really up to the individual user of the word to decide what that word carries in meaning. And that's a really big problem if we're using it as a selling point to sell products. Making a product that's clean or pure does not inherently make it a better product. Which brings me to my next point. See, when movements or consumers or companies hyper-focus on one thing, like something being clean, in the process we often end up vilifying some ingredients while praising other ingredients where we might not need to. Because something that's natural can also be really dangerous and really harmful in high concentrations. Essential oils are an example of this, where many essential oils are absolutely not supposed to be ingested, to be consumed, and can be really harmful to put inside your body. And high concentrations of essential oils can also burn your skin. However, they are 100% natural. On the other hand, we can see ingredients made for both food products and beauty products that is 100% made in a lab, that has nothing to do with the natural environment, that are much more sustainable and much less harmful than its natural counterpart. And what I'm trying to get at here is that asking if something is natural, if something is clean, or if something is pure is the least interesting question to ask about a product. Asking if the ingredients were derived from petrochemical components or if the synthetic ingredients are known to bioaccumulate both in our bodies, but also when the product is washed out into water systems. We should also be asking about ethical sourcing of ingredients from natural beauty companies and what science or peer-reviewed studies they're basing their claims on. That's where I want to go. Now my next point sort of takes its stepping stone from a personal anecdote of mine, but we're going to talk about the clean, pure, natural beauty standards. So when I gave my first lecture, It was for about 50 people and it lasted about an hour, and afterwards I asked people if they had any questions they would like me to answer. And a woman on the first row who I had noticed during the lecture in and of itself, who made some faces once in a while and generally seemed a little bit skeptical of what I was saying, raised her hand and asked me if I felt like a hypocrite because I was talking about sustainability when I was wearing makeup. I then proceeded to tell her that the makeup I'm wearing is actually homemade and a lot of the ingredients were sourced from things you usually have in your kitchen. I made my blush from beetroot, for instance. I made my mascara from charcoal and aloe vera. She told me that makeup is not necessary to survive, and as a sustainability advocate, it is thus unnecessary to wear it, and it would be better if I didn't wear it. I told her that it's not as much the makeup in and of itself, it's where the ingredients are sourced and like how it's made and with what chemical components and how they're sourcing their materials and how they're sourcing their ingredients. This didn't land, like, at all. She did not like this and continued to express her disappointment that even the beetroot I used for my blush was then used unnecessarily when it could have been eaten instead. We're talking about some very small impacts right now. I hope you're all with me here. Sort of the same vibe as advocating for using disposables, because when you use reusables, you have to wash them and then you have to use water. The impact of making disposables use a whole lot more water than it takes to wash a dish. FYI. I honestly got the vibe that she didn't take me seriously as a sustainability advocate because I, in her eyes, conformed to conventional beauty standards. She associated this look and these beauty standards with being unsustainable. Meanwhile, she wore colorful patterns and had pearls in her hair and really just gave it all to this amazing hippie boho vibe aesthetic, which I love, and I have been there myself, trust me. However, it does seem a little bit arbitrary to shame someone for wearing makeup, because last time I checked, it actually requires more resources to create pigments for clothing rather than just wearing the clothes in its natural colors. But I would never say that to anyone because that's incredibly petty. Okay. It did get me thinking, however, about how a certain style, a certain aesthetic can make us feel like we're achieving more in terms of sustainability because we look the part. Or at least we think we do. It's an incredibly subjective thing, you know? So perhaps we end up looking down on other people for having another style or preferring another aesthetic, wearing certain clothes or wearing makeup in a certain way, because the way we have deemed the best is now universally just the only way forward. That smells like gatekeeping to me. Now, this is simultaneously kind of the same thing and also the complete opposite, but the minimalist aesthetic. I have talked in great detail about my feelings towards the minimalist aesthetic and especially the Western interpretation of minimalism. So go and watch that video if you want to know why I don't consider myself a minimalist, and just generally for some context of minimalism also historically. In certain contexts, and I'm not saying overall, just sometimes the basic, essential, capsule, minimalist wardrobe has an attitude that is slightly tilting towards a holier-than-thou vibe. Not always, just sometimes. Like somehow you're more sustainable when you wear basic white t-shirts. I have said this many times, I am going to keep saying it also for the cheap seats in the back. We'll just keep repeating ourselves. Sustainability is not an aesthetic. I want that to, I just like, can I have a billboard, please? Sustainability is not an aesthetic, and you cannot tell if someone is being sustainable based on their aesthetic, based on their style preferences or not. Sure, some materials are more unsustainable than other materials. Organic cotton or hemp, linen, etc. are really sustainable materials, while petroleum-based polyester is unsustainable. But that has nothing to do with aesthetics or style or the way you choose to express yourself. What matters in terms of sustainable fashion is how the materials are sourced. Who is producing them? Are they producing them under ethical circumstances? Are they being paid fair wages? For how long you've owned that specific piece is also something that has to do with sustainability. How you maintain it so it can last for decades to come, how you choose to repair it if it breaks. All of this stuff has to do with sustainability, and you cannot obviously tell that by looking at the style of someone. Someone is not inherently more sustainable because they choose a different style or a certain aesthetic, and I feel like this taps into greenwashing quite a bit. Over time, consumers are exposed to certain ideas and they are exposed to certain associations regarding certain aesthetics. For instance, how when we see a product that is packaged in something that's brown, beige, green, etc., we often assume that that product is going to be more sustainable, or at least that's the plan. Aha! Hopefully that's something that's gonna go away at some point. That would be awesome. But we sort of see the same issues and the same problem when it comes to sustainable fashion, that we often assume as consumers, or companies want us to assume as consumers, that a basic white t-shirt is more sustainable because it's simple, or the hippie boho aesthetic vibe is more sustainable because it looks natural. Hippie equals sustainable. Yes, okay, got it. Okay. Now I can hear all the sustainable brands that carry alternative wear just going, how very dare you? And all the hippie basic capsule wardrobe clothes from Shein just going, no, just listen to this, it's fine. You know? It's the shortest and cheapest way of doing something for the planet, just updating my color scheme. It doesn't sound great, because it's also not great. This is something I'm honestly really passionate about because it's something that we all have responsibility in unlearning. In sustainability, we do have biases and there are certain associations, and we do subconsciously create boxes where we put people into, and we subconsciously assume that some people are more sustainable based on what they look like. And this is something that is so important to unlearn. Now, the idea of something being better, being more sustainable because it's clean or pure or natural, goes far beyond and transcends far beyond fashion and beauty in sustainability. It definitely also transcends into food. Because let's just talk about fake meats for a second. Now, I'm a trash vegan, so obviously I'm biased. I have my own preferences, but nonetheless, I think this is an important subject as well. Because if we normalize and if we cultivate that things that are natural are more sustainable and are generally better than things that are considered unnatural, we run into a problem real quick when we look at what we eat. In this purist narrative, I definitely often see the standpoint that meat from animals, natural meat, is better for you because of the sole reason that it's natural, because it's something we understand. We see an animal, we know you can eat it, completely ignoring the implications of whether or not we should. On the opposite side, we have, for instance, Beyond Burger and other type of substitute products. And because they are made in a lab, because they are made synthetically, that's not what synthetically means at all, but nonetheless, it's worse for you, or it's harmful because it's not natural. Do you see where I'm going with this? Yes, things we can't grow in our own backyard is very scary. I guess a lot of this also comes from how animal agriculture often advertises itself, or the associations that we would so love to be true as consumers when it comes to how our meat is produced. Because it's not really that natural anymore now, is it? I also made an entire impact video about animal ag, where we talk about the developments in animal agriculture, from having like a few herd animals in your backyard to the industrial factory farming that we have today. Spoiler alert, factory farming is not very old, but has somehow in very few decades managed to become the most unsustainable industry on the planet. Yeehaw. I can't even remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, okay. How we produce meat today is not as cozy as we would like it to be. And it's not necessarily that natural either. Because meat products today, specifically from factory farming, is just as processed as fake meats. We just don't necessarily see it in the same way. But if we count selective breeding, if we count artificial insemination, the use of antibiotics, fertilizer, and massive feeding and breeding facilities, the image of natural animal agriculture slowly starts to come apart. Now, this implication of substitute meats being less sustainable because they are less natural than actual meat products is not something I see a whole lot within the vegan community, obviously. But another thing that I definitely do see within the vegan community is this purification of food, that only vegans who eat whole food vegetables are proper vegans, and vegans who, like myself, eat fast food trash and substitute meats are not as vegan as the vegans who don't. I assume you can tell from my tone how I feel about this. There is definitely this vibe somewhere, and just want to preface this by saying, if you don't like substitute meats, that's completely okay. If you don't like whole food vegetables, that's also okay. This is not about shaming anyone's preferences. We are literally entitled to liking what we are liking. What I simply want to highlight here is that you're not a worse vegan because you like to eat something that is meant to imitate a meat product. A lot of people are actually using these products, are really dependent on them to stay vegan, including myself. This is definitely also a type of gatekeeping to keep the community as pure as possible, and as you can probably tell, I don't have time for it. Just a little anecdote that I often highlight whenever I talk about this, but Jens and I, we were at a street vendor that had vegan burgers and we were standing in a queue, and there was a woman behind us who realized all of a sudden that it was Beyond Burger that they used in their burgers, and she proclaimed very loudly that then she didn't want it because she was actually a proper vegetarian who didn't want to eat fake meats. And again, that's fair. It doesn't make you a proper vegetarian. Also vegetarian? That was just a really... Okay, I very rarely hear people gatekeep vegetarianism. Okay. Did I feel attacked by this statement? Yes, absolutely. Would I have fought her? Possibly. Now, I didn't have a specific plan for this video other than I just wanted to talk about some of these different aspects of purism and natural we see in the sustainability movement. And I think I want to end this on sort of a conclusion question mark, I don't know, about how some of the solutions that's going to really help us forward in terms of sustainability are created in labs. And other solutions are dependent on us becoming closer to nature and becoming closer to the planet and respecting its resources. We're not going to find one specific solution in just one place and then that will fix everything. We are going to need science as much as we're going to need the holistic approach. Both things are important at the same time, and different people are responsible for different parts of this development, but they're all doing something. Also, other solutions require a complete reconstruction of our food systems, of our transportation, of how we produce and manufacture goods. In terms of the is it natural, is it not natural, I also think it's important to keep in mind that we shouldn't discredit valid information or peer-reviewed science because we don't understand it yet. Many natural things we also don't understand, so there's really no need to be so on the fence about things that are not considered natural, if you catch my drift. I hope that you liked this video. This was just me talking in a very chill, loose format, but let me know if you want to see other videos discussed in this manner as well, and we can definitely do that. Also, if there are any other aspects of this natural versus unnatural problematic that you would like me to go over, I will make a part 2 if necessary. If it gets the message out, I will make a part 2, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day and take really good care of yourselves. Until next time, bye. Thank you so much for watching this video, and also a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys help me create green, zero-waste content, and I love you guys. You can find the links to my social media accounts down below and the link to my Patreon on this screen. Bye!